So if you've been following the videos, been covering a bit of Zigbee stuff and wanted to cover the cool kid thing of Zigbee2MQTT, but we're going to do the installs on HAOS, Docker Compose, and UnRaid. So if you want to find the one you want, just look for all the chapter links down below and let's get on with it. So why Zigbee2MQTT? I mean, you showed us all the cool stuff with ZHA, right? And it's built into Home Assistant. And it's pretty easy, especially with the little Ethernet adapters. There is an issue that being inside of Home Assistant, meaning tied directly, I know everybody's kind of does stuff with HAOS, and some people do Docker Compose, some people do UnRaid, you do Portainer, etc. A majority of them are using HAOS out there, according to the numbers. May not be my numbers on my Discord, but really an add-on inside of HAOS is a Docker container. It's not technically part of Home Assistant itself. Now, the cool thing about if you run them separately, you can actually not have to worry about upgrades and being, hooked together. Like for instance, if I want to roll back a version of Home Assistant, I don't have to worry about, is it going to screw up my Zigbee network? Because there was some breaking change and I was an idiot, didn't read the change logger. There's really something screwed up. I can just go in and go change my container of Home Assistant, pull an old version, don't have to worry about, am I going to have to pair up my 60 or 70 freaking Zigbee devices and go dig them out the ceiling and whatever it may be, because my Zigbee2MQTT is separate. It's decoupled. The only thing that couples it to Home Assistant is MQTT, which is Mosquito. Don't be scared of Mosquito. It's not anything you really have to dig into and anything like that. You just need to install it. It takes care of the communication between Home Assistant and Zigbee2MQTT, given the whole name. It's Zigbee2MQTT, right? Now, I know there are some guides out there you can run like ZHA and Zigbee2MQTT at the same time on the same coordinator. Don't do that dumb shit. That's just like, I don't know, maybe having two spouses. And then, wait, just remember that when you go to install this, don't have ZHA running because we're not going to use it inside of Home Assistant. And the beauty of things is you don't even need Home Assistant to run Zigbee2MQTT. So if you do other home automation software or you just want to talk to it with Node-RED, you don't need Home Assistant at all. So let's jump into, but remember, we're going to do the first one is HAOS. You probably, if you're not using Home Assistant or if you're doing the containers, skip down and find the one for your installation method. And no, this is not a commercial for Dr. Pepper Creamy Coconut. I thought it was weird that this flavor, and I picked one up and ended up buying a damn case of it. So if you tried it, let me know. Not a sponsor at all. It's pretty damn good. Now, one question you might have, what devices are supported in Zigbee2MQTT? Do I need to go to some special website or anything? No, don't go to any suppository deal that sounds like something. No, just come here to the horse's mouth, zigbee2mqtt.io. This is everything it supports and it's real. Click on supported devices and it shows everything you can possibly ever want to see on all these things. It always changes because they're always adding devices. Currently 3,500 devices from 430 different vendors. If your own, they even have a walkthrough. If your device is not listed here, they'll can help you walk through that. Like if we wanted to jump in and go see Third Reality, what does Third Reality support? Well, they support their new garage tilt sensor. Yes, I have one in the box. I haven't messed with it yet. They also support their new little temperature and humidity sensor, light, sitting right here, testing that one. Haven't done a thing on that yet, but pretty cool that you can see everything right in here. If you click on it, you even get all the stuff that it, exposes, like humidity, temperature. It talks about everything. Then they even say like, hey, if there's any like issues like pairing stuff, like for instance, like I remember on some of the Philips bulbs, you come over here and they talk about like all the different pairing and touch link factory reset, etc. How to reset these things. Got entire walkthroughs of things on different devices because someone may have found something that, it's just a good note, for future users on a device, and you can find that all right here on the actual real Zigbee2MQTT repo of devices. Now, I know some people are wondering, well, hey, I've got this other dongle in ZHA and I want to be with the cool kids and jump to Zigbee2MQTT. Is there an easy way for me to migrate? I'm just going to be blunt with you right now. There's not. You're going to need to, about the only way I can say it's really going to be easiest is all your mains powered stuff is go delete them, remove them from your network. And a lot of devices will go back into pairing mode and then set up Zigbee2MQTT, enable pairing, and then they'll jump onto your network. Make sure you have your good channels selected before you do that though. I know there's some migrations that go from Zigbee2MQTT to ZHA. Don't know how well they work, but you're just gonna need to, if you wanna go be with us, go pair it. We're just gonna have to tear everything down and pair it back up. Rename your entities. Yeah, it is a pain in the ass if you have a bunch of stuff in ZHA already, but it may be all worth it to move. Now there is one thing about, hey, can I change adapters in Zigbee2MQTT itself? This is in their FAQ right here. If you can change from like the CC ones, like the CC, like say if you had a USB dongle that was a 2652 and then you wanted to go to an Ethernet one, you could absolutely do that without pairing up as long as you don't change the PAN ID or the channel or of course the key. Now, I highly recommend, because I have run into this myself, is if you need to copy the IEE address from the old adapter to the new adapter. It's basically kind of like the MAC ID. And what happens is some devices actually look it up. I think they talk about it here. I have it where some devices work perfectly fine without changing the MAC ID on the adapter. And it just works. But then other devices, I had to power them, I had to reboot them. And some of them I had to pair them up totally. But if you go in and change the IEE address, and they have a walkthrough of like using the Zigstar multi-tool, BSL, Flash Programmer, there's multiple ways to change the IEE address between the two adapters. Definitely go through and do that if you're going to migrate over to, like, say, the SLZB06 or etc. So this is our clean, pretty much install of HAOS that we've been doing on that little Nook. And I am going to use, in my example, I'm going to use the SM Lite. If you didn't catch that video, you can find it in the other links down below and jump on over to that. I will also show you how to do USB. I do have a USB Zigbee adapter plugged in as well, so I'm kind of cover everybody. You don't want to do ZHA, so we're actually going to ignore this one, but I'm going to grab the IP address off of things and throw it in my other tab. That way I can go in here and I can grab the information I need. But first we need to come in here and we need to install MQTT. So we'll go over to settings and go to add-ons, and we'll hit the blue button behind me here and hit add. We're going to use just a regular Mosquito broker here. I know some people have had some issues with some retain messages in the recent versions of MQTT. And there is another one, I think, that you can install, EMQX, and say that 5 times fast. No, we won't. You can go through and install that one instead. I haven't used that one in HAOS, so you may kind of venture off on your own, but once you do get it installed, it's going to be the same for the setup. I'm just going to use the kind of the built-in one here for now. We'll go to MQTT, we'll hit install. Now, the way the MQTT users work is whatever users are in Home Assistant itself actually feed into MQTT. Now, if you're running this in your own broker, we'll get to later, then of course you manage your own user IDs. And I don't think there's any configuration for this anymore. You can add some local users. Looks like a list of created with username and password. You don't need to do this because you're using Home Assistant users too without any configuration. There it is. So guess what? We don't need to do this. And we'll just leave it all as default. So cool, cool, cool. and we'll hit start. And we want to make sure and start on boot. We'll leave it the watchdog. MQTT shouldn't crash, but whatever. So we'll go here, Zigbee. Nope, there's no Zigbee. It's just decons. Well, let's go jump on over and we'll put in the repository. So we need to jump on over to the HAOS Zigbee2MQTT webpage. If you do get stuck, there are some installation instructions. I know in the past there were kind of some issues with it, and that's why I did a previous video, but we'll try to kludge through it this time. So we've already done the mosquito broker, and then we need to grab this link here. And we'll go to repositories, and we'll put in that address and hit add, and then we'll hit close. And then I think you need to refresh the page. And there we are. We have Zigbee2MQTT. Now you'll notice you have Zigbee2MQTT. They got the proxy and the edge. If you want to run two, you can automatically see this might be an option for HAOS users. Like you have an external building, you could run on different ports, changing the configuration. Maybe we'll go over that and do two setups, but you just need to go ahead. Right now, we're just going to install the regular one, and we'll go ahead and hit install. Docker pools, 2.6 million. That's pretty impressive. Go ahead, Koenig. So we'll need to do show in sidebar. I'm not doing auto update. We'll do watchdog, and then we need to jump on over to configuration. So we'll leave all this the same. MQTT, if you're using Home Assistant with HAOS and everything like we are like this with MQTT, you don't have to put anything. It's all automatic. Now for the serial stuff, we do need that. So that's going to be depending on your adapter. If you are using like the SM Lite like I am in this case, I would highly suggest to go put a reserved or static IP on your router or gateway, whatever it may be, because if you put the IP address in here, you know it's going to change it when you're on vacation or something, you're on a business trip and you have someone else at your house, and it's going to screw up all your Zigbee. So definitely put in an IP address that's going to stay static. I love to use DHCP reserved on my actual devices, and I even use DNS override, so I can just put in a DNS name, and that way I'm not hard coding IP addresses in. So we're using the SM Lite. We can cheat. This is the cool part. Don't forget, remember, if you have some firmware updates, you can go do those with the little one-click upgrades. Right now, I'm running the 2024-03-15. It's been pretty stable on my own production network. So we'll go to Z2M ZHA, and we're automatically on Zigbee2MQTT. And you'll notice it has the port stuff right here. And that's all we need right here. Now, it is say if you use the Z2M add-on, it's better to edit the YAML configuration file directly. Yeah, but maybe we can edit that later. I just want to get this running. So let's give this a shot. So we just need this line here. Now, you can change the transmit power later. I'm not a big fan of running that 20 full bore power because this has an antenna on it. It's a very strong radio, good antenna. You got to think of like your little smart plugs and stuff like that. Have those little cheap PCB antennas that are crap. They probably don't have the best power amplifiers, and they're not putting out a full 20. It's a two-way street, so why not just kind of make it come down where things are kind of even Steven? It makes for good two-way communication instead of one just blasting out. Now, of course, if you did and I did that like 1 mile Zigbee thing or whatever it was, you probably would want to do a router with 20 and then that with 20 to get a full link going across somewhere far. That was fun. If you haven't seen that video, it's pretty fun. So we'll copy this and just paste it in here. Make sure you don't have any other spaces or tabs or whatever it is. Space or tabs, right? Now, if you are using USB, where do I find that? If you come over here to System and then go down to Hardware, and then hit all hardware. And if you look for down here, there should be TTY USB. This is the USB adapter. And you can grab the whole thing right here. You have the dev TTY USB. But basically what you want to do is just grab this right here all the way to the end, just like that. Copy it to your clipboard, then flip back And then you would put that in the port just like this. And that would connect to that Zigbee adapter. Now, I'm not using that right now, so I'm gonna put mine back, but this may be if you're using USB. So I'm using this, and we'll hit save, and we'll cross our fingers and hope for the best, right? Go back to information, and let's go ahead and start this puppy up. We'll jump over to the log, and you can see, once I gave it a little bit, I have everything ready to go. No errors. Everything looks green. Zigbee2MQTT started. If you get stuck with something, don't freak out or anything. Just come to the Discord. It's just discord.digiblur.com and just tell them what you're working with. And no, not that song, but we'll help you get your setup and get going. And hopefully you won't get frustrated too much. Boom, it started. Ready to go. But of course, don't click off. I'm going to have some configuration stuff of like what some of the things I do. And then we do want to change the channel. Come in here, go to settings. So we're on Zigbee channel 11. So you have Wi-Fi channels 1 through 11 on 2.4 gigahertz. Make sure you're using 1, 6, and or 11 on your own access points. And I would highly suggest a Zigbee channel of 15, 20, or 25. If we left it 11 and you had an access point on 1, that access point would be stepping on your Zigbee network and it wouldn't be have a good experience. So I'm gonna set this one to channel 15. And now when you do save that, it's going to break your Zigbee network. It's going to break the actual add-on. It's gonna break everything. So what you need to do is watch. We'll come in here, go back to add-ons, and we need to restart things. So if we look at the log, there's a problem. We've got full of errors now. This is okay, because what happened is this is, to save you from yourself, is you just changed the channel, and imagine you had like 60 devices all paired up and you had a beautiful network and everything was working great, but you saw some stupid YouTuber tell you, change your channel number. And now you've broken your network. Well, guess what? Is you could just change the channel back and it would be fine. They make you actually have to delete the backup. If you wish to recommission your network, please remove the coordinator backup. And this will fix the error. So that's what will happen. Recommissioning your network will require repairing of all devices. So they do this to prevent people from complaining to them that they broke their network. I guess we'll use the file editor of the add-ons, I guess. Let's go do that. I think you can delete files with that. I think this has the big blinding white background. Yep, still the same white background. Zigbee2MQTT, and you see this coordinator backup JSON file, is you will need to delete that file. So we'll delete that file. And it should, because we had the watchdog, it should automatically restart our Zigbee2MQTT. I think it was continuing to restart and it would just error out every time. So we should be able to jump in here after I've talked enough. So boom, we're back up. And we have our correct channel number. Same thing, if you did want to go back in here and change your keys and stuff like that, that will break your network. And you can edit the YAML file directly like the little SLZB says to. It's in Zigbee2MQTT. Don't get it confused with your Home Assistant configuration YAML. They're different files. See, here's the network key, PAN ID, etc. If you really want to go through and edit things, you can. All right, so let's pair our first device. And if you don't like dark backgrounds, there's one to blind you just by pressing that button, but don't do that. Now, luckily, our friends from Third Reality sent us some cool little smart plugs. Not a sponsor of the video, just happened to see some of their stuff, and they saw some of my cool videos and said, hey, let's send them some stuff, and here we are. So I don't have this added, so let's join this. We're going to plug it in, get power. Let's hit permit join. That'll start the timer. Let's hold the button down. And there we have, we're starting the interview. Doesn't take that long. It's actually pretty quick, being on the device. And we have it right here, shows Third Reality plug. Now the friendly name, you can click that, and then it jumps into all the cool things. Way more stuff than you probably see in ZHA. And you can actually see it says right here, it has router, third reality, etc. supported, shows the power interview true. And then you hit the little pencil here and then you can update the name. Now there is one last step with Home Assistant before this device pops into Home Assistant because we need to configure MQTT. If you go back to settings, go to integrations, and then you should see MQTT right here if you haven't already set it up before. If you have, it won't be there. I'm just going to hit configure and hit submit. Boom. You can see already guess what pops in? All my stuff. And you can see right here under MQTT, there's 2 devices. I have my third reality plug just to make sure, and we should refresh and you should get your energy stuff and everything. We do need to probably be on for a little bit. It'll start bringing over the sensors as they start reporting. As you can see, like it'll bring over like the wattage, the voltage. Those may be hidden in here by default. You can bring those in if you want to. Just, click on them and hit the little thing and say enable. And yeah, it'll come back in about 30 seconds and you'll be able to see the voltage of things. Pretty simple there. You can see you're not having to manually do any YAML files or anything to get devices over from Zigbee to MQTT over to Home Assistant. Once you pair them, they're just going to pop into the MQTT devices settings on Home Assistant itself. Now, pretty much you're done if you're a HAOS user. I would hang out for the last little section of the video. I'm gonna go over some settings about like the OTA update, the maps, also some of the availability settings I use, etc. Because I kind of doing those for everybody because it's all the same no matter which way you set it up, whether you're using HAOS, Docker Compose, UnRaid, etc. Now, for you UnRaid users, if you haven't already set up a mosquito broker, I'm using the ones that are in here. I have seen some issues when you start to get a bunch of devices with the CM Cambridge. I guess it's the Eclipse one they're using. I'll give you the tag, exactly the one I use, because there is a whole thread about issues. I don't see like that EQMX template on there. Maybe I'll put one up there. But for this video, we're just going to do the install of the CMC Cambridge repository one. Is 2015. Now, of course, if they do finally fix the issue, but they said they couldn't reproduce it, so everybody in the thing was rolling their thing back to 2015 or jumping to something else. So we're going to just start out with that one. Leaving everything the same, except for we do need a persistent data directory. So I'm just going to change the mosquito right here. And we're going to add /data for that on the end of it. You can go ahead and do the logs. We don't want the logs to actually be inside the container, because I'll paste that mosquito one from above and I'll do logs. So we don't want to run insecure. I'm not insecure. I'm on YouTube. So yeah, that's a whole different channel. I'm leaving everything the same, and then we'll hit apply. And there is a couple configuration edits we need to do. While we're there, we'll go ahead and add in also Zigbee2MQTT. And I guess somebody didn't like my template. They want to do their own, which is very confusing. So we'll jump to this one and hit install. Mine actually does point to the correct and totally legit container. We'll leave the app data set the same. We'll leave the web UI set the same, 9442. Now, since we are using the SM Lite 1 Ethernet, we don't need to put in USB pass-through or anything like that. But I know there are people that are using USB, so let's go ahead. If you don't need that, just kind of skip ahead a little bit till you see me editing the file. But how do I find out my, my dev by serial ID thing, right? You just come to here. I've left the link. This right here, ls-l serial by ID. And then if you look in and you hit your terminal ID on UnRaid, we'll paste this as plain text and we'll hit enter, you'll see your USB adapter. Now mine's going to be a little bit different. So we'll hit add device. And the name of it, you just put Zigbee. Now the value is, if you jump back over here, you got that /dev serial ID. Copy that. I know I just killed my clipboard and the other. Gonna paste that as the value, put a slash, and then go back to your terminal. I need just this piece here, and then paste that in. It gets pretty long, some of them really long. And there's one more tip. Do a colon at the very end, /dev/Zigbee. That's going to pass in that long ass name to something simple inside the container. That way we can be really stupid simple in our configuration file. So we'll hit save. It's going to pull down the container, and hopefully it won't start, but if it does, it's going to just continue to try to restart because we don't have MQTT set up and enabled. Now we need to fix stuff with this mosquito thing. There is a configuration. Jump over here to the documentation, and you need to scroll all the way down as you find this persistent data. And that's what's going to talk about. We do need persistent data, otherwise Zigbee2MQTT is going to be screwed up. So we need to edit the configuration file in mosquito conf. And I'm just going to use like WinSCP, and that way I can go change the permissions of the files and everything in case I get something screwed up and it's not right in my files. All right, so I'm going to mount user app data. I'm going to mosquito. I'm looking for this mosquito comp. And then there's also this one set as default. This is the default config. And we do need the persistent data. So they're going to give you a few things. I'm not going to be running anonymous. I'm going to do option 2. If you come down here and then you want to change, basically you got to take the comments out. Listener, protocol, and then the password file. And it's going to be set to the password file, which should be external to the container because of that path. But we do need to copy in those 2 persistent data sections. And you should just be able to copy this. Okay, we'll paste that in, mosquito data, and we'll just go ahead and save that. So then you come down, you go, hey, let me go ahead and start this. But I got one more problem. If they don't make it easy. If you'll notice when you go to logs, it says, hey, you need to do this. We already did this. But right here, it says it's unable to open the password file. Jump back over here because we need to make a 0-byte password file. Otherwise, it throws a fit. So if you come down to authentication, they have the commands right here for you. Docker exec, touch, config, mosquito password, right? So we'll copy that one. Go to the prompt we have open. If you close that one already, just go back to here and click the little prompt button up here. We'll paste that back in. That should make our config. And then we should be able to use this command to make our password for our user. So we'll paste this plain text. We don't want username. Let's do HAOS MQTT. We'll do password, how about backwards? MQTT HASS. MQTT HASS. So then we have our password. It's set up. And we'll go ahead and restart. I think you might, but we're just going to go ahead and restart anyway. We'll restart it. Make sure that it likes our password file. Yep, we're good. And then let's go ahead and finally we can restart or start Zigbee2MQTT. Now it's not going to start exactly. You'll notice even though it does say started, I don't believe it actually starts because it fails the configuration. Yeah, see it shows stopped. I bet you the logs is it doesn't know what to use for the adapter. So what we can do, let's use WinSCP again. You can use whatever editor. We're going to go into Zigbee2MQTT, and I'm going to edit the configuration YAML file. And I'm going to go ahead and change a few things. You can see it has the network key already set up and everything, and the external PAN ID. It's all, if you wanted to set generate on that, you could, but it's automatically. I like that they've done that. The MQTT server, we do need to fix that. It's going to be this local host, and then we need a user ID and password. And where you can get that from is off the documentation. I'm just going to do and copy this and paste this in. User was HAOS MQTT, and then we did MQTT HAOS. And then remember the serial port is going to be /dev/Zigbee if we were using the USB one. We're not using that here because remember I'm using the SM Lite. So guess what? They have the cool thing in here. You can pop in and you can grab this information directly. And I just need to grab this here. I'm not going to grab all this stuff, but you're more than welcome to. And you can see I'm going to paste it below it. And there's that port. Oh, and editor's note is while you're here, to save yourself a shitload of time, put the channel number that you want. Remember, we want to use channel like 15, 20, or 25 because those are between your Wi-Fi access points of 1, 6, and 11. I hope you're using those and not some other stupid in-between channels. But of course, you can look at the graphic here of how all the channels are laid out. Again, I do recommend 15, 20, or 25. So to save ourselves a lot of time is just come down here to advanced and put channel : and I'm going to do channel 15. The default is going to start at channel 11. If you don't do this now, you're going to have to change the channel, start it, come back in, delete the thing, restart it. Yeah, it's a whole pain. Just put the channel in right now and call it a day. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And we should be able to start up Zigbee2MQTT. And let's open up the logs. And we are getting open TCP socket. And you should see we get Zigbee2MQTT started. So you can see we got it finally set up. And we should be able to add in our plugs and everything. And jump to the next section, because that's when I'm going to go over some of the different settings inside here. I know it's a little more difficult to set up for the UnRaid stuff because you got all the stuff to go through with the MQTT and everything, but it's not too bad once you do the setup. Just got to kind of fumble through it and just look at some of the documentation. So for the Docker Compose, really super cool, kids. I run a little Zima board on for like my ADSB stuff, where that's like picks up all the airplane, you know, radar, whatever you want to call them, pings and everything, and puts them all on a map. And I run Docker Compose on that, just Debian. It's headless. It's just command line only, like the way it should be. And we're going to put Docker Compose of Zigbee2MQTT, and we're going to try the MQTT setup they have on here. So right in the docs, they talk about, hey, let's set up and start Zigbee2MQTT. They even have Eclipse Mosquito 2.0. They even have a no auth config. And we're going to give all this a shot, and I'll just copy and paste this in. I will change my device to I don't need a pass-through, because I'm just going to use that little Ethernet adapter, because that's one of the problems I have. There's only 2 USB ports on that little Zima board, and I already have my 2 RTL SDR radios. I guess that's saying double radio. But I have my little RTL adapters, and there's 2 of them in there for both frequencies in the US, and I don't have anything else to plug in USB without adding a hub. So that's where the Ethernet works out great. To my Docker Compose file. All right, so let's copy and paste. And I'm not sure if this works. I'm just going to give it a shot, right? It's in the docs. Make sure we're lined up right. Get your rulers out. I am going to modify these for what I want. This is America, Chicago. I think it's America, not Americas. Yeah, America. Oh, I do have a port conflict on 8080, I think. Yes, because I have all the airplanes on 8080. So we'll change that to a different port, the old school 9442. And then we'll save this file and we'll do configuration. I think it's YAML like that, I think. Nope, it is YAML with the A in it. So we'll just copy their entire thing. And it should hit the container MQTT. We will need the serial port. The network key is going to generate we don't want permit join on first. Network Z2M, and it's right here. Well, let's give it a shot and see if it'll start. Up-D. Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. So let those pull, and we can check Dazzle. We'll see if they start. All right. The Zima board is not the fastest. So there we are. We have Zigbee2MQTT running on our little ADSB board. Kind of cool because that's kind of what I'd planned to have as my backup of things. I guess the backup of the backup. If shit really hits the fan, I can just throw some Docker containers over there. And sorry about bumping the mic. But that's fairly easy to do. For just go through and follow the little FAQ on doing Docker Compose for Zigbee2MQTT. Now, a couple things I like to do in the setup, in the settings, after I get everything going, a little gear icon right here. If you look in availability, I like to set my own availability times. And basically what this is, it's going to go through and ping all your devices and mark them as available or not. Now you got to think of battery devices. They only wake up every so often. So you just kind of have to base on some of your different devices may not wake that often. And if you have it too small of an availability time, it will mark some devices as not available or as offline. So you just change the availability. I do advanced. In the timeout, I like to use 20 minutes for my mains devices. Now, of course, play around with the time, do it yourself. Also, I'd use the 540. It really all depends on what you want to do. These aren't like some God numbers that I like, oh, here's the ones you have to use. No, this is just some I've played around with. Some of us talk about different numbers on Discord, etc. And just go around and whatever you think that works out for your devices and pretty much find something that you want to do. MQTT, this would be if you want to run multiples, you would want to change your base topic where if you had multiple Zigbee2MQT instances, say like one in the, like say a detached garage or barn way across your property. If you're one of those types, maybe you just run Zigbee2MQTT2 or barn or something like that. That way they wouldn't step on each other with the same MQTT. Lastly, on the about thing, I am running on my production network 2024-03-15 of ZStack. I know there's been some back and forth with that where 2022-12-26 was probably the most stable for a long time and people kept going back to that, but it seems that this version is very stable. They've been working on, really testing it, which is a pain because everybody's stuff is different, but a lot of people are saying this one's been working great. If you do like Zigbee2MQTT, go ahead and, come on over to that donate side there and do the thing. OTA, there's not a whole lot to the OTA. This is zoomed in. The buttons look kind of funky, but it will just, you can hit check all. And if there is an over-the-air update, you just mash the button and it'll go through. Sometimes I even like some smart plugs I've done. It takes like 45 minutes. There's no fast, method to updating the firmware on Zigbee2MQTT, and that's really not their fault. It's part of Zigbee because it just takes a back seat to all the traffic and just drops the firmware when it can on the network, and it doesn't need to do it fast, so why not, right? It should work your light bulbs the quickest, not the OTA updates. But they're just automatic. They'll go through, just hit the button. It'll even give you a notification inside of Home Assistant at the very top of like, hey, there's an update for such and such light bulb and do you want to do it or not? So that'll pretty much do it for this one. Hopefully you've got Zigbee2MQTT set up, or at least you got a good idea of what everything is inside of Zigbee2MQTT and can make a decision if you do want to change over, or maybe you're not into Zigbee just yet and you're deciding whether I should use ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT. Definitely take a look at both of them. I'm going to be a little biased because I have been using Zigbee2MQTT for probably almost 4 or 5 years. And I really love Zigbee2MQTT and what they've been doing with it. And yeah, there's nothing else to say on that one. If you got any other things you want to see on Zigbee or whatever, definitely shoot us a comment down below. Couldn't do it without all the Patreon members, YouTube members. Definitely thanks to all of you. And y'all know the drill. Press the buttons down there and y'all take care.